Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode in the series. In this episode we're going to be setting up some stats and formulas. So here we are back in our scene, and what we'll be doing is we'll be adding some basic stats. Now one thing I would like to highlight is that make sure that the stats module, like the installs, is up to date, as in later updates the hearts system, like in Zelda, actually got added, so we don't actually have to do anything. It's already there. Love it. So let's go there straight away. So plugins, game creator, installs, then stats examples. Let's open it up and you will see this one. Now if the examples aren't up to date or the module isn't, you will not have these health units. This example will be missing, and this is basically a variation of the very first one, change health. As you can see, when actually looking here, we don't actually see anything, which seems a bit odd, but then when you actually open it up, you will see the hearts, and if I select the player, you will see, okay, 100 health, blah blah blah, and then it's going down like Breath of the Wild style. Now the way this is done, you could use other symbols instead of hearts, but don't mind the pink, it's because I haven't converted those particle effects. So yeah, it's that's how the heart system works. So really cool, really nice. So yeah, we'll take that. Literally we're just going to copy this, and then go back to our scene. No, don't save, and let's just paste it in. Cool. Now we're not done yet. We're going to take over some of the other stats as well. So when we go to the other examples, and this is also a prefab, by the way, but I do want to demonstrate it. Yeah, save. We won't be using health here, of course, but we have some of the other stats as well, including a button that has the stats for our menu, which we can use as well. So we're actually going to be using a variation of this type of formula, because it's using an attack formula, which is sweet. Yay, experience, yay. Okay, cool. Anyway, so we have all of these stats, which is incredibly cool. I love seeing a stat window like this. Really awesome stuff. We have our progress here as well for our level, the level itself, mana, and what is the other one? Stamina. Okay, there we go. So yeah, we have all of those stats displayed, which is really cool. So we'll be taking this over as well. Now we'll be repurposing part of it, so we're not literally going to use it like this, of course, but yeah, we'll need to have some of it. No, don't save, and there we go. Cool. So I don't like, so everything else is I did in the 4K resolution, making it tons smaller. I'm fully aware of that. It's become really small now, even though it is better. It's not exactly what we want either. So 3840, 2160. Now it's a bit hard to predict what this is going to look like. So what we can do is when we go to Stats UI here, HUD, and we drag in one of the health units here, because that's how they spawn basically, it will give us an impression of what it actually will look like. We'll need to remove them, of course, because they're generated in game time, but at least it gives us an impression how big it will be, and what it will look like. So yes, they're going to be red instead of this, but at least it gives us an impression on the sizing, which I think is quite important if you want to create your HUD. Now obviously we're not literally replicating Tears of the Kingdom, because that would be weird, or any Zelda game. But yes, we'll definitely keep the hard approach. I think in terms of sizing, this is actually pretty fine as well. Don't need it to be bigger. It could be smaller, because I know they're actually pretty small in Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, it also does need to be visual, but it's up to you what you want to do with it, of course. So one of the first things is we're going to copy over, let's unpack this prefab, there we go, and paste as child, yay. Then we have health here, which we're just going to remove, which was the top bar. There we go. We can now get rid of the other health, other one, player HUD. There we go. And yeah, we can move this around. So I think here would be fine. Obviously, when it comes to design, do whatever you want. Like you know, it's up to you. I'm just rearranging it to something I think is going to be all right. Like this, and then status effects, which status effects, if you haven't actually seen what it looks like, it is incredibly cool how they'll just generate there, basically. But yeah, by default you can't really see much. So there we go. Quite simple. Nothing all too spectacular, really. But yeah, it works. There we go. So now let's remove these, so we no longer need these. And if I'm going to save this, and then let's remove that little one here. There we go. If I'm going to hit play, then it will automatically pick up the stats from the player in case the player actually has them, and he does. If it doesn't appear for you, make sure you add the traits. So, and then yeah, there you go. You know, you have the heart system. Now if you want to start off with less, you know, just lower the amount of maximum health he has at first. Anyway, the traits are all controlled by the classes, which you have different ones. I'm not going to mess around with that. We have one archetype, which is just a knight class, which is just the basic class. Naming, etc. is irrelevant. You won't, you know, it's not like you see that in the game. So we've got our basic HUD. Go ahead and make it look pretty, design it the way you want, but functionally, you know, it's all there, and that's all we really need. Now when it comes to the stats itself, like I mentioned before, absolutely love the look, but what I don't like is this being another window, obviously. Like, it's, yeah, we don't want that. So we want it all to be you know, to be part of the default menu that we created. Now if we have a look at stats, what actually makes the stats you know, function that way is it's all referenced to the player, meaning it, just like the HUD, meaning it doesn't actually have to have a local reference, which obviously is absolutely great, which also means that technically we can just copy this. Then we're going to go to our player, inventory bag, go to our prefab of the menu or whatever one you have, and we can actually just pop it in here, which is what I like. So base as child, and there we go, and we have the stats. And now all of these stats, like I mentioned before, they're linked to the player, so technically this should all just work just fine. Now before I do that, let me actually remove this, go out of it, and do the same thing here. 3840, 2160, there we go. Copy this over, and now we'll open it up, and then yeah, paste as child, and it still does that. Okay, that's interesting. Scaling all to 1, and there we go. Now what we'll need obviously is a trigger to open these stats or to display these stats. So yeah, it's up to you where you want to add that. I'm going to add a button here, which I think is you know, pretty good. We can actually, for now, we can actually just go out of this one again. Take over the, let's close this. Can literally just copy over this perfect little button, which matches the rest of the UI, of course. So let's copy that over, open up this again, and where shall we put this? There we go. I personally, yeah, kind of like it here. It's not in the way of anything. There we go. Cool. And then this is going to be opening up, so set active. So this is obviously not going to match, and we need to open this up. Let's call this stats menu. Yay. So for now, let's activate this. However you want to display this, obviously is up to you. You know, ideally, what did we do for the background in this one? I think we used the default background blur. So let's look that up again. Ooh, that's a bit dark, right? Let's have a look. There we go. Shade. Copy that over. Paste it in here. Remove the background image. There we go. So yeah, pretty good. Now, as you can see, we copied over the raw image as well. It's not perfect, I'm not going to pretend it is, but at least it's a cool way to basically display the character here as well. I think that's quite awesome actually to do that. And yeah, we're done. I mean, obviously, you know, make it look pretty, do whatever you want. And then yeah, let's have a look, see if this actually works. We can get rid of this now. And there we go. So let's hit play. Cool. I left it open, which is not smart. And then yeah, we press on stats, we get our stats. As you can see, they're all representative, they're all working, which is all lovely and great. And yeah, you know, definitely make it prettier. But I think it is pretty cool to have it in here. I think it's pretty cool to have like the character displayed as well. You know, you can change the way that looks as well, of course. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Now when it comes to things like the naming, by the way, so Knights of Tristan, this all comes from the clause, I think. So you can change all of that to will. Now the important thing here is obviously how are we going to be using our stats. So video games have formulas, you know, damage formulas. It's not straight simple as in take off some damage. Now we messed around with this in the Soul series I did for Game Creator 1 as well, and this time around I took a slightly different approach. So in the description you will find a action, which is this action, and let's create, there we go. Yes, technically this can be done with formulas as well. It's quite complex, but you can do it with formulas as well. But I just created a super simple script that does basically everything. This action allows you to grab attack damage, fire damage, ice damage, lightning damage, defense, and etc. etc. And that's going to come from somewhere. Now, all of these can come from stats. So you can have them from variables, you can have fixed values, whatever you want. But they actually all come from stats. Now, if we actually have a quick look at our formula, I usually don't do this. Anyway, so the formula is actually quite simple here. So it's a kind of a default formula, which you even see in the stats examples. I think if you Google for RPG damage formula, this is the one you find in one of the very first Google results. It's kind of a default formula. However, what we're doing here is we have fire damage, ice damage, lightning damage as well, and those actually cancel each other out. So meaning to say that if you have a stat of fire damage, which is 50, and you have fire resistance that is 50, then it's going to subtract that completely, and basically your fire damage does nothing. If your fire resistance is 100 and fire damage is 50, again, nothing will happen. It's not going to add some extra defense. So yeah, basically these cancel each other out. If your fire resistance is lower, then obviously fire damage will deal additional damage. And we have ice damage, lightning damage. You can change the names if you don't want ice and lightning. And if you know a tiny bit about C#, you can add others to this as well. Because as you can see, just, you know, if you want more of them, which I wouldn't recommend because this is already going to be a bit complex, but if you want more of them, you can add more of them. So you can copy paste this, change all the references, and add that to this formula as well. So you know, if you want to do more, have some fun. I wanted to show this, and normally I don't, simply because obviously using an action like this is you know, a bit more restricted than just using a formula. However, you can just expand the formula here as well if you want. So yeah, it's quite easy, and it's just easy to use an action. So we're going to be referencing these two stats. That is kind of the idea. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to use those inventory items we created to you know, modify these stats. That's kind of the idea. And basically set the foundation for all damage calculation, defensive calculation, etc., etc. So yeah, let's have a look here. Let's have a look. So we need to check all of the stats we have. So when we go to player, night class, let's open this up. So obviously we're not going to mess around with XP. We're not going to mess around with level. Those already have formulas that work pretty well. By the way, this is that name a reference to. You could actually, from the stats menu, you can actually tie this to a global variable and add in the character creator that people can type in a name, save that in a global variable, and that's the one that will be visible here, which I think is pretty cool. Anyway, so we'll need to use these, and I'm going to reuse them because, you know, why not? So I'll be reusing everything that basically you know, we don't really need to see. So let's have a look. So we have constitution, dexterity, will, etc., etc. So what I'll do is let me just start at the top. So charisma will become fire damage. Constitution will become ice damage. Luck will become lightning damage. Cool. Then strength will become fire resistance. Will become ice resistance. and lightning resistance. There we go. Cool. We need a something for armor as well. So obviously we need a defense stat. So we'll just change dexterity to defense. Not sure if it's S or C. Anyway, defense. We'll need to rename all of this as well. The formula, you know, obviously if you want to do it right, change the formula as well. I'm not going to do that. The formula name, I mean, I'm fine with... Actually, why? And they all have... Okay, why do they actually all have formulas? That's interesting. Anyway, so yeah, we have defense, and then we have fire damage. Fire damage. This is for the UI. It literally states that as well, by the way. I think this would be description. Yeah, something like this. And yeah, you know, change the icons to whatever you have from icon pack that matches. We're going to do fire resistance. So this is the ID, by the way, and this is what you see in the UI. So fire resistance. Okay. Well, you got the gist. Actually, we had defense against physical attacks, so we can use that for the resistances. Against fire attacks, there we go. Just going to quickly do that. This is not the fun part, but yeah. Ice. And lightning. Okay, cool. Oh, I did the wrong one. I'm not paying attention, apologies. Lightning. There we go. Oh, there we go. And this is damage, of course, so additional lightning. Yeah. There we go. That now it makes sense why it was in the wrong order. I misspelled. There we go. Additional ice damage. And I think we're pretty much done. Oh, didn't change this. Yeah, this is definitely not the fun part. Ice damage. Okay. I'm pretty sure I forgot at least several of them, actually. So anyway, so defense. Okay, that's all fine. Fire, yeah. Okay. There we go. Didn't change this either. There we go. hopefully that's it. Oh, of course I didn't do this one either. Okay, there we go. No, not damage resistance. Dear God. Okay. There we go. So that should all be fine. I'm not going to change the formulas here. Armor rating, something like this. No, just armor rating, and let's do these capital. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, a lot of boring stuff. Anyway, so we've got these all set up now. So what we're going to do is in our action, we're going to reference to all of these stats. Now, we didn't actually do physical damage, which we need to do as well. So there's nothing we can change. No. Okay. So I'm just going to duplicate defense then. Going to rename this to attack. Okay, attack. Cool. Let's have a look. So we're referencing to dexterity. Pretty sure we can just duplicate that. Rename, and yeah, we have to change the stats as well. It's actually become quite attack has become quite a bit more elaborate compared to what it used to be. It actually was quite a bit simpler before, but that's okay. So I'm going to copy this over so we actually know what they're all referencing to. So attack is using dexterity, so we need to change that to attack DMG. Then in here, as you can see, they're actually referencing to a source base. So if we have a look at source base, that's the name of the stat. So we need to change those as well. Yeah, so yeah, that is actually quite annoying. But unfortunately, we need to do that as well. So that's how these formulas work. They work great, don't get me wrong. It's just a lot of additional work. There we go. We can just rename these and reassign them. So we'll do fire DMG and fire damage. The order doesn't matter, and we'll just reassign all of them. Ice DMG. As you can see, the formula is all pretty much the same. So the way it's set up, actually, I think that is might actually be quite interesting depending on how you want to do your game. So basically the way it's working right now is that you know, as your level increases, all of these stats will increase as well. I actually don't want to do that with my damage and resistances. I only want to do that with the default defense and attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this a lot simpler. So attack and defense, great, and then this is simply going to be none. So I don't want these values to automatically increase. That's kind of what you need to make your builds for, and it would be a bit weird if that just increases by default. Now when it comes to defense and attack, it makes a lot of sense for your level to influence this, of course. However, for your resistances, I think that's kind of something you would need to do yourself, in my opinion. So again, if you do want that to automatically increase based on your level, then please go ahead, just keep those formulas and make the corresponding changes. However, yeah, I don't actually want to do that. There we go. Oh. So the way it works, let me be a bit clear on what I actually did here. So these use formulas in addition to the base values, right? So it has a base value of 5, as you can see here, and then when we go to attack damage, it will use that base value and then multiply it with your level. So your level is going to be increasing your attack damage. That makes a lot of sense. For that to work with defense as well makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'm entirely and utterly wrong. Just not really sure if that makes a lot of sense for the others. Actually, what am I doing? Let's just do it. Let's just we can always remove it otherwise. So I apologize for my indecisiveness. We can always just remove it if it becomes too powerful, because that's one of the risks basically, is that you're creating something that becomes a bit too powerful and you don't actually need to do that much for it, which is always something I'm afraid of, that you just automatically become powerful. Anyway, let's just do it anyway. So fire resistance, let's keep it short. Res, so fire res, and then ice res. Now the spelling matters a lot, so whatever you called the stat, make sure the spelling is identical, because otherwise, yeah, it won't work. And lightning. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, okay, that's it. Again, apologies for the indecisiveness. So let's drag in fire damage, fire resistance, ice damage, and then lightning as well, and then we're pretty much done. There we go. So yeah, now by default all of these will automatically increase. Now we do need to have a look at these base values. So I think 5 is a fine value. Obviously this one is too high, so fire resistance shouldn't be that high. There we go. And then attack and defense could be a bit higher. Both of them, I don't know, 20 and 10, something like that. Anyway, perfect. So what we're going to do now here, so this is going to be our formula, and we're going to be saving these as prefab. So we're going to create 2, one that the player will use and one that the enemy will use. We'll save them as a prefab simply so we can always just reference them, makes it easier. So we're going to go stats, and then stats value of the player, attack, and then attack. Stat value, player again, and then we drag in fire damage, stats value, drag in ice damage, there we go, and then we're going to drag in lightning damage. Now here when it comes to the defense, slightly different. So defense is going to be stats as well, stat value, but I'm not player but the target, and it's going to be their defense. Then fire resistance. Where is fire resistance? So what am I doing? Stats, then stat value, and then fire resistance, and again of the target. And then stats, stat value, apologies, target, and then ice resistance. There we go. And then again, one last time, stat value, target, and lightning resistance. Now the result will go somewhere. I'm actually going to store the result in a variable. I think that's just slightly easier, instead of creating another stat that is just not yeah, I'm not sure if that's necessary. No, I don't think that's necessary. Cool. So we'll store that in a variable. Let's go to our variables hero, so we can just add it to our hero, and let's call it number, and we'll call it player damage. There we go. So let's have a look. Let's actually hit play. We'll keep this open. Pretty sure that will work if we keep it open. So as you can see right now it's 0. Then we're going to oh, I need to reference it, maybe that would be helpful. Variables, global name variable, hero, and then player damage. There we go. Apologies. So yeah, let's play. So right now, hero has a value of player damage has a value of 0. We'll run this this action, but there's no target, of course, to there's actually not a target to identify at this moment, so the action won't actually do anything, which makes a lot of sense. So let's actually assign this to something. So we're going to go to prefabs here. And for now, let's just call this player damage. There we go. And we're just going to save this. Perfect. Let's head over to our dearest enemy, who is in the field here, chilling. We'll give him some stats. No, traits. Apologies. Traits, not stats. Traits. There we go. We're going to give him the one of the other classes, so mage class, which has all of the same values, by the way. So that's important. Of course, they need to use the same ones. Cool. And then what we're going to do when the player hits him, this is when we're going to have a look at all of these values. So that's the next thing. We're actually going to check this out, try this out, and see if it works with the base. And then once it works, we're going to use our inventory items to increase these values. Cool, so we've got the traits on the character, and in Game Creator 1, basically we had a component here on receive hit. You still have a trigger. You still have a trigger for melee. Where is it? Melee on melee hit. However, we're not going to be using anything like that. We're trying to, you know, keep it to a minimum when it comes to actually doing all of that on the characters themselves. So first of all, we need to make sure that the player one is complete. And as you can see, we are missing the attack one we added, which is kind of a core stat. So we do need to add attack. There we go. And then when it comes to change base, not going to do any of that. So we set up a base. well, we can do stamina is fine. Yeah, okay, it's fine for the other ones. So stamina, things like that. But these we want to keep them all to their default values. Perfect. So let's hit save here. So now that that's complete, let's also make sure the enemy class, because we'll be using this moving forward. And so once we set up the their AI, we want to make sure that theirs is complete as well. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to player, combat. Then we have a bunch of triggers here, and here we're going to add our calculation. So let's do run condition. No, not run condition, check condition. Condition. Is it check conditions? There we go. We don't want to run that by default every time we just accidentally press a button, even if we're not armed. So let's make sure we're at least armed. So yeah, for now we'll find a workaround later for that. Which one is it? Arch, sword, shield. There we go. So just for now, and then let's add. Oh no, the one we can just copy paste the prefab we created. So copy. And let's just run that in. Now we want this to run first before we actually attack, and all this really does is it just calculates a value. It doesn't do anything else. So it will just calculate the value and output it in here. So that's all it does. Now what we need to do next is we need to go to our combat folder, sword shield, and then on the clips we have this burst shake. So what we're going to add next is attribute. Still have trouble finding stuff. Change attributes. There we go. None of the player, of the target, and then attribute health. There we go. And then not set, subtract, and then global variable, hero, and we're going to select player damage. Then we're going to copy that and just, you know, add it here as well. Yay. And even here. So the reason we can just copy paste this without any issue is because it doesn't have any local references. So then copy pasting will just work the way you expect it to. So all it does is subtract the value that is calculated the moment we hit that trigger. So let's have a look. So we don't need to see this. We do need to see their stats. There we go. So let's have a look at our variable. So first of all, our variable player damage is 0. When I press left mouse now, nothing happens. And normally, yeah, there we go. It will now calculate a value. And yeah, that's great. It calculates the value. Now, to be entirely sure that this is done correctly, we're going to, so we saw 35, right? So let's change their defense, change base to, I don't know, 20. That's higher, I think, than the base. Yeah. And if we press again, then technically we should be seeing a different value, right? And if we don't, that means that something is wrong in our calculation. or not in the calculation, but the way we get that. And yes, so what we need to do is we need to go to our combat, which one? This one. And then here, what we're going to do is we're going to target. We're going to select characters, combat, and then character target, which I know can be a bit confusing because there's two different targets, but yeah, that's actually not the same thing. So this is from the melee module. So characters, combat, and combat target, and last one. Oh no, that's the wrong one. What did I do? Characters, combat, and combat target. There we go. So now we're actually selecting the right things. As you can see, by the way, you can also grab values from here in case you wanted to use that instead, which I think is pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, so we're doing that now, which is awesome. And then now when we hit play and we select our player damage, then you will see the value actually really changes. So it's 19 point whatever. Can we actually change this now still? No, we can't. Okay, that's all right. Let's just do that now. And then here now we're going to do 15 instead. There we go. No, not player, character. And now the value is 20 instead. As you can see, so the value actually changes based on his defensive stats. Like they should be, you know, that is the whole point. So yeah, and that's basically it. You know, now we have a bunch of stats we can work with. And you know, stats actually matter. They're not just irrelevant numbers. So the last step is to make sure that our inventory reflects that. And in case you're wondering, you know, shouldn't fire damage, ice damage, lightning damage do something else? We'll do that in the video for where we do our special attacks and things like that. So we'll be adding some cool effects, but you know, effects that actually matter as well. But for now, it's just getting the core stat system to work. So when we go to our inventory, I think we had a folder for that. No, yeah, there we go, inventory. There we go. So we have, you know, this has 25 defense. This says 85 defense. That's actually quite a bit. So we'll definitely need to play with the values a bit here. Anyway, so we have all of these values. What are we adding to the player on start? Actions on start. Basic sword. There we go. Basic sword and basic. Okay, so now these numbers don't actually really mean much. They're just for the visual part of it. However, on equip and on unequip, obviously we're going to make sure that they actually do something. So this is just to display the visual part of it. It doesn't really do anything else. You know, the shield might even add some defense, who knows. So 20, 10, and then what we do on equip and on unequip, that's where we actually add the values. So we're going to go to stat, because we're doing attack and defense. So player, this was the sword, so attack, and then add, what was it, 20? Then we copy that over, paste it in here, and then we do subtract. So when you unequip it, obviously it should go off. Then for the sword, for the shield, let's copy that over as well. So add, and then defense, and we did 10. Then copy that over, paste again, and we do subtract. Cool. Now let's do the actual armor pieces, just so we can actually see our stats change. That's the whole point. We just want to see that our stats are changing so that it does something. So I think these values are a bit high for the default part, right? So upper, let's do, I don't know, 15. So 15. And then here, subtract 15. The lower, because this is all the basic stuff, right? So it's gonna do 10. Yeah, okay, so lower is gonna do 10. And then we subtract that here, perfect. And then the helmet, I don't know, 5 at this point for something basic. So 5, and then copy and subtract. Cool. So we now know that all of these values actually, they really matter. So we've seen the impact it has on the character. When we up the values, you know, the damage he takes goes, you know, it lowers. So the whole point is to not have to mess around too much with, you know, health in general. Let the armor, defense ratings basically do a lot of the part as well. That's where a lot of the stats come in. Not saying you can't increase health, but you know. Cool. So let's hit play. And then what we're going to do is, so we have all of these items for the player. So what we're going to do is we're going to inspect the effect it has on his stats, and I kept it on again. Oh, we're not actually giving those anymore. Okay, let's create. I must have removed that action or disabled it somewhere. I'm not really sure. So inventory, not equip. Where's this item? Add item. There we go. So the helmet. Cool. Pretty sure it must still be somewhere, but I must have disabled it or removed it.
Sorry, good. I don't know that one.
And that was my Alexa intervening. Cool. Let's add our items. So when we have our stats straight away, I should have actually looked. So we have 20 for defense. Then if we equip our helmet, which has +5, then when we go to stats, now our defense is 25. And that's a cool thing, you know, you can create armor that has fire resistance and, you know, all of those things, and it will change the stats. We'll definitely be creating some of that stuff. So we'll be creating, you know, fire swords, ice swords, etc. And then all of our stats will adapt, and all of the stats actually matter as well. So, you know, if our attack is higher, which it now should be, actually, that I just think about it, if we're going to have a look at our character here, he'll be yeah, because we increased the attack power of the player, so basically he's dealing just so much more damage. So don't worry about it. We'll set up some proper health once we actually create their behavior for the enemies in general. But yeah, really cool stuff. So now all of the stats actually matter. We have a proper formula that actually calculates resistances, defense, attack, and we can have some fun messing around with that. So hope you enjoyed the video, and in the next one we'll be creating some special attacks. We'll actually have fire, ice, lightning do a bit more than just be additional statistics. So thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.